Hi everyone, my name is Roya and this is my November wrap up. I read 9 books this month, which is honestly not too bad considering that I was doing NaNoWriMo and I was dedicating a lot of time to writing one of my books and all that stuff. But anyway, let's get started on the books. So the first 2 books I don't have with me, so I'm just going to get through them really quickly. The first one of which is Shadow and Bone by Leigh Bardugo. That book is the first book in the Grisha trilogy, and it is about a girl who despite being tested as a child for some sort of ability that marks her as a Grisha, she did not, she doesn't find out until she's older that she has one. And so she has to go off and be a Grisha and all this stuff that she didn't want to do. This book kind of reminded me of like a mixture between The 100,000 Kingdoms by N.K. Jemisin and Alana by Tamora Pierce. So yeah, I feel like both of those books you would probably be into the Grisha trilogy. The next book that I read was Dark Places by Gillian Flynn. This is a thriller book about a girl named Libby who, at 7 years old, her whole family is killed and her older brother is imprisoned for the crime. And fast forward 25 years and she's an adult. She meets some people who convince her that maybe her brother didn't do it, and she decides that maybe they're right. There's totally that possibility. So she goes off and does some investigation, and what she finds is very surprising. Um, that book was really interesting. I really liked it. I thought it could have been a little bit better, I think, but it was definitely a good thing to read around the time of Halloween, and it was definitely pretty creepy while still being a little bit not just thriller, but kind of mystery as well. Every other chapter is told from her point of view, and every other chapter is told from the point of view of her brother or her mother at the time of the murder. Um, so it's really interesting, and I gave it 3 stars because I thought it could have been a little bit better. It could have been done a little bit differently, but I still really enjoyed it and I still recommend it a lot. The third book I read this month is City of Bone by Cassandra Clare, and I know I have never heard anything bad about this series at all. People love these books so much. I've heard so many good things about it. So when I was really disappointed, I was quite surprised. I just felt like it was seriously lacking in originality, and the characters were all kind of annoying, and the plot was incredibly predictable. I totally saw every single twist coming way beforehand. Like, not just kind of, oh, I bet this is what's going on. No, like I knew. Like, I knew what was gonna happen. It was just so predictable, like, every single time. I guess I just don't see the appeal. Like, I don't understand. Like, I mean, I'll still keep reading the series and everything because it comes so highly recommended and everything. But this first book just really did not like do it for me, and I feel like I wonder if maybe I'm just too old to be reading this for the first time, but like I don't think that's quite it. Um because lots of people my age love this book still. I feel like there was just too much that I had already seen before and it didn't do it for me, but I'll keep reading the series and see if it gets better. The next book I read this month was The Knife of Never Letting Go by Patrick Ness, and this book was so good. It was really weird too. I think the thing that makes it one thing that makes it really really good is the fact that it's it's told in first person, and the actual first person, like, not dialogue but just normal parts like the inner monologue and whatnot, it's told um in the writing style of the character. Like, it actually says it the way, like, in his voice, which is really interesting. But anyway, this book is about a boy who is stuck in a town where everyone can hear each other's thoughts in this gigantic jumble of craziness. Then they call it noise because it's just all their thoughts at once, and it's just like a cloud of noise, pretty much. And there are only men in the world because all the women died. And it's really pretty interesting. So it's like a post-apocalyptic book in a way, but it's really not done anything like anything I'd ever read before. So I really, really liked it. Also, this has the saddest character death I have ever read. I'm not kidding you. I cried in the middle of a coffee shop. Like, I was bawling. So just be warned that this book is extremely sad, but it's really good, you guys. The next book I read this month was Winter by Marissa Meyer, and this is the fourth and final book of the Lunar Chronicles series, which I love. And so this book was amazing. Um, Not as good as Cinder. I still think Cinder is my favorite, but this book was fantastic. I'm gonna do an entire review video of it. The next book I read was The Purity of Desire, and this is a book of 100 poems by Rumi. And this was really cool because it was a lot of fun to read. Rumi writes some really interesting poems that aren't just like really crazy and hard to interpret. They're pretty easy to interpret, and they're about just everything under the sun, pretty much. And this is really fun. I'm gonna keep just reading a random poem out of this every once in a while because it's just so funny and so awesome. The next book I read was How to Write Science Fiction and Fantasy by Orson Scott Card, who, of course, is the author of Ender's Game. This was a really good book to read during NaNoWriMo, I feel like, and it really it goes into a lot of detail about writing in general and character development and world building and all that stuff, and then specific rules for science fiction and specific rules for fantasy, stuff like space travel and what you have to take into account for the reader not to go like, what the hell? And then same thing with like magic systems and what to take into account not to like confuse the readers or make them feel like it's a cop out or something like that. And it made me kind of realize, like, kind of think back to like all the books I've written and everything, and why the one that's published is the strongest one, and everything, and what I can do to make the other ones that good. So I highly recommend this book to anybody who writes at all. Like, I'm serious, this is really cool. Next, I read The Hourglass Door by Lisa Mangum, and this is a book about a girl who um, gets dragged into some stuff with some people who traveled through time from like the 1400s Italy. It's kind of like magical realism, but honestly, the first half of the book basically just read like a contemporary book. It's much the same issue that I had with Magonia that I DNF'd earlier this month. And it wasn't until like page 150 at least that we get to the actual plot. And then even then, the magical realism stuff was a little bit weak. Like, I felt like there wasn't enough explanation about why X causes Y to happen and blah de blah. So I felt like it was not worthy of more than like 3 stars, but it still kept me interested the whole time at least. Like at least I kept reading it and didn't feel like I should just put it down because it wasn't doing it for me. So by the end, it ended up being a pretty good story, but I still think it could have been so much better. And finally, I read Slayers Volume 4 by Hajime Kanzaka. And this is probably, let's see, I've just read the first, third, and fourth one now, and this one is probably my least favorite of the 3 that I've read. Probably just because there wasn't as much plot, even though it's like the longest one. But there was a lot of really interesting, like, setting type stuff that is not in the show. Those are the books that I read this month. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you soon with my December TBR. Bye!